For a while, I've been wanting to talk about Psalm 82. It's an interesting psalm because it brings up a subject that throws some people off, confuses people. Let's just read it really quick. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Defend the poor and fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. So what does it mean when it says that God standeth in the congregation of the mighty? He judges among the gods. Jewish people believe there is only one God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. But here, in the Torah, and in the Gentile Bible, it clearly says, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods. So who are these gods? How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? So, to get a clear understanding, we need to look and see when the psalm was written. This psalm is attributed to Asaph. 12 psalms are attributed to Asaph, and Psalm 82 is one of them. Chronicles first presents Asaph as one of the three musicians who presented music before the Lord at the time of the Ark of the Covenant. So now we have a time period. Was brought to Jerusalem. After the Ark was returned, David appointed these three, Asaph, Heman, and Ethan, to continue to be in charge of the music at the tabernacle, and then at the temple after Solomon had built it. Asaph was remembered as a seer at the time of Hezekiah. Interestingly, some of the psalms attributed to him include divine oracles. The Book of Ezra and Nehemiah note the existence of descendants of Asaph, or perhaps a guild of temple musicians who are involved with music in the Second Temple period, where an Esamite named Uzi is called the chief officer of the Levites. Or who could be some of these other gods that are mentioned in the Council of the Gods? Well, there's Baal, designated the universal god of fertility, and that capacity his title was Prince, Lord of the Earth. He is also called the Lord of the Rain and Dew, the two forms of moisture that was indispensable for fertile soil in Canaan. There's Dagon, Phoenician and Palestine god, or Philistine god of agriculture and the earth, the national god of the Philistines. Asherah is identified as the queen consort of the Sumerian god Anu, and Ugaritic El, the oldest deities of the respective pantheons, as well as Yahweh, the God of Israel. So that's who we're talking about here. So let's move along. This brings us back to the Shema Israel. Hear, O Israel, is a Jewish prayer, and it's also the first two words of the section of the Torah, and it's the title, better known as the Shema, of a prayer that serves as a centerpiece of the morning and evening Jewish prayer services. The first verse encapsulates the monotheistic essence of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Found in Deuteronomy 6:4. Observant Jews consider the Shema to be the most important part of the prayer service in Judaism, and its twice daily recitation as a mitzvah, religious commandment. It is traditional for Jews to say the Shema as their last words, and for parents to teach their children to say it before they go to sleep. Now here's the thing. There's controversy about Hebrews or Jewish people prior to the First Temple and during the First Temple, whether they were worshiping more than one God. There's some evidence that perhaps early Jews were not obedient to one God or not serving one God, but in fact, even in their first temple, worshiping more than one God, and that's why the first temple was destroyed by Yahweh as punishment for the Jews' disobedience. But let's continue. Let's read a little bit, an article by Wesley Baines from the beliefnet.com. The problem of Psalm 82, do other gods exist? Before me there was no God formed, and there will be none after me, which is a very important scripture. The words of God to the prophet Isaiah are unequivocal. Throughout the Bible, God declares himself the one and only God of all creation. But in fact, that scripture mentions other gods would seem to contradict his words. Therein is a vast amount of scriptural evidence that there are many such gods. The most visible example is Exodus chapter 7, verse 10 through 12. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord commanded. Aaron threw his staff down in front of Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a snake. Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staffs. The question is, how did the Egyptian sorcerers perform real magic? It does not say that they fooled Moses with tricks. It says they did the same things. The Egyptians drew on a source of power that was not of God. Later in Exodus chapter 12, verse 12, God declares that he will execute judgments on all the gods. This is reinforced when the author of Numbers declares the Lord has brought judgment on their gods in Numbers chapter 33, verse 4, heavily implying that Egypt had its own gods and that God feeded them. The Psalms especially are full of evidence of other supernatural beings, while at the same time they assert the dominance of God. The writer of Psalms chapter 86, verse 8, declares that there is none like you among the gods, O Lord, and in 96, verse 4, goes on to say, for great is the Lord and greatly to be praised. He is to be revered among all gods. And the list goes on and on. When the Lord gives his people with the 10 Commandments, the very first law etched in the stone was, you shall have no other gods before me. Again implying the existence of other supernatural entities. It did not simply forbid the worship of false idols, it forbade the worship of other gods. Another biblical incident, perhaps of even greater import than that of Moses' battle with the Egyptians, is Daniel's encounter with the angel in Daniel chapter 10, verse 12. The angel speaks to Daniel, telling him that the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princesses, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. An angel God was detained for nearly a month. What could do this? The king of Persia is obviously not a man. What is he? And why does this being have dominion over Persia? We find the answer in Psalm 82, which explains the nature of these other gods. God stands in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Defend the poor and the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy, free them from the hand of the wicked. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are unstable. I said, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High, but you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. If God mentioned here in Psalm 82, verses 1 through 7, were human rulers, verse 7 would have no place. There would be no need to tell a human man, that he is doomed to die like men. This presents a problem. Who exactly is God talking to? We can infer that the supernatural beings God addresses in Psalm 82 were appointed to rule over nations, and that they somehow were failing at their task. They showed partiality to the wicked among transgressions. They failed to rule with God's perfect justice. To unlock the secrets of Psalm 82, we only have to look back at Daniel chapter 10. In verse 20, the angel speaking to Daniel says, "Do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia, and when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince." Michael is an angel of God. He is also a prince. Daniel's prince, in fact. It is likely that God appointed Michael to watch and rule over Israel. And just as Michael, the angel, ruled over Israel, the prince of Persia, likewise, an angel ruled over Persia. These gods are the principalities and powers that Paul speaks of in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. The powers of the dark world and against the forces of evil in heavenly realms. The fallen angels in Psalm 82 are condemned to the death that is prophesied in Revelation chapter 20, verse 10, when Satan and all his angels will be cast into the lake of fire. It is possible that these gods, which pervaded the myth of nations and kingdoms, were fallen angels seeking to be worshipped by man. Was Dionysus once a heavenly being? Did Osiris once walk the halls of heaven? Has Loki seen the face of God? This illustrates the deceptive nature of these beings. The biblical authors believe that the ancient pagan religions were driven by beings hostile to God, and that these supernatural entities worked against God's plan, bringing suffering to those whom they deceived. They took on the guise of any number of benevolent yet mercurial and imperfect gods demanding worship, and they got it. Now let's look at another point of view, and this is from gotquestions.org. What does the Bible mean by ye are gods? Let's start with a look at Psalm 82, the psalm that Jesus quotes in John chapter 10, verse 34. The Hebrew word translated gods in Psalm 82, verse 6 is Elohim. It usually refers to the one true God, but does have other uses. Psalm 82, verse 1 says, God presides in the great assembly. He gives judgment among the gods. It is clear from the next three verses that the word gods refers to magistrates, judges, and other people who hold positions of authority and rule. Calling a human magistrate a god indicates three things. He has authority over other human beings. The power he wields as a civil authority is to be feared, and he derives his power and authority from God himself, who is pictured as judging the whole earth. The use of the word gods to refer to humans is rare, but is found elsewhere in the Old Testament. For example, when God sent Moses to Pharaoh, he said, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh." This simply means that Moses, as the messenger of God, was speaking to God's words, and would therefore be God's representative to the king. The Hebrew word Elohim is translated judges in Exodus chapter 21, 6, and in chapter 22, verses 8 and 9, and 28. The whole point of Psalm 82 is that earthly judges must act with impartiality and true justice, because even judges must stand someday before the judge. Verses 6 and 7 warn human magistrates that they too must be judged. I said, "You are gods, you are all sons of the Most High, but you will die like mere men. You will fall like every other ruler." This passage is saying that God has appointed men to positions of authority in which they are considered as gods among the people. They are to remember that even though they are representing God in the world, they are mortal and must eventually give account to God for how they use that authority. Now, my personal point of view is this point of view from gotquestions.org is possible, unlikely. I think what we're talking about is spiritual beings who are fallen angels, who for a period of time are given authority over nations, but they are still under the cloak of Yahweh, the Creator God, and they must answer to Him for their actions, for their behavior, and they will be held to account, and He is telling them that they are going to be judged. So, you can let me know what you think in the comment section. Be sure to click like and to subscribe, and I hope you have a really good day, and God bless.